Welcome to Earth. You fine folks have been well acquainted with it, as it is your home. The Earth is also a sanctuary to some of the most beautiful wildlife and scenery known to mankind.
But far off in space there lies another home, 6 light years to be exact. This planet is known as Stuarth, based off our Lord, Ian Stewart. And this planet is home to some of the most exotic species you will ever meet.
Before we start rambling on about Stuarth star, it's important to know what one is first. A star is a spherical ball of plasma in a fixed proportion in the universe that emits a vast amount of energy and light. The chemicals that make up a star are hydrogen and helium.
Yes, similar to Earth, Stuarth has both a moon and a sun. But there are some distinct differences. Firstly, we must start with the sun. It is a K5 class with a mass of 65% of the mass of the sun, and a radius of 68.4% of the sun, which means that it is a wee bit smaller than your old sun. The terrestrial equivalent orbit of it is 0.39 in astronomical units. The temperature of the sun for planet Stuarth is 4,350 kelvins, or 407 degrees Celsius, or 7,370.33 degrees Fahrenheit, if you're a silly American who's too stubborn to switch the Celsius scale. America. The temperature is also a 15,100 degree Celsius difference compared to the Earth's sun, which means Stuarth's sun is much more hot, which in turn means Stuarth is more hot. The actual tilt of Stuarth is 25 degrees, which means that one day is 21 hours. To reach Stuarth at the speed of the Flash, it would take 126.25 years, or 500,300 miles per hour.
Here is the moon for Stuarth, named after Snowbell after the iconic character from Stuart Little. And get this! Snowbell's distance from Stuarth is 235,000 miles.
Stuarth's winds are a bit more prominent than Earth's. Since the overall temperature is higher, the wind currents have to travel a bit farther in order to get more dense and form a current. The Coriolis effect also occurs since the Earth is spinning, which is what curves the wind currents.
The atmosphere of Stuarth is also much different than what us puny mortals are used to. The atmosphere is made up of 68% nitrogen, 24% oxygen, 5% of carbon dioxide, and 3% helium. This makes for a much more hotter climate since the carbon dioxide traps the heat and thus warms the planet. This gives plants a necessary ingredient to photosynthesize, a process when plants take the sun's energy and converts it to oxygen and glucose. This explains the more oxygen present in the composition.
Stuarth's interior consists of 3 layers. The core of Stuarth is very hot because of it being 6,000 degrees Celsius. The core is made up of iron, nickel, and a bit of potassium. The second layer is known as the Chantal, and is made up of molten rock, or magma for short. Its temperature is 4,500 degrees Celsius. The final layer is known as the crust, which consists of iron, aluminum, silicon, potassium, and oxygen, and of course, rock. Stuarth's planet has roughly 25 tectonic plates, which is why the planet has so much volcanic activity and Stuarthquakes. Volcanic activity is the main reason why the planet has so much carbon dioxide in the air.
Stuarth has a vast hydrosphere that extends all around the planet, obviously because it's a hydrosphere. The hydrosphere is not as wide open as Earth's because of all the land, but enough water is around to provide precipitation to all the biosphere. Another interesting part about the hydrosphere is the major ocean currents and how they move around the globe. The convection currents transport oxygen, energy, and nutrients around for the marine life to enjoy. Without the currents, all marine life would perish, which is not good. The belt starts at the equator and makes its way northward, where it then sinks due to the coldness of the ocean. It then makes its way back to the equator, and the cycle continues. The currents drastically affect the climate of the biomes that are present. The currents are what make areas cool and dry, or wet and moist. This is proven to be true at Frosty Land, or the tundra region of Stuarth, where there is a cool water current right by it which affects the land, making it cool and dry, as stated before.
Welcome to the Rainforest Volume, one of Stuarth's largest and most populated ecosystem. This biome makes up to 9% of Stuarth's population alone. This biome is also home to oodles of biodiversity because of all the food and perfect conditions. The rainforest is humid and moist during the daytime, but at night it cools down. In terms of plant life, the rainforest has a lot of it due to ideal servings of rain and sunlight.
Boy, it's me, Brady Gregory from Planet Newfoundland. Today we're hunting the elusive ogre. He's big, he's scary. Today you're going to see one live. Let's go. Great! There's an ogre! Get out here, boy! He's coming. Sick. Where's his onions? I'm here to ask you a few questions.
Get the frick off my swamp, you butt!
Great! You can talk! Boy, mate, I just came to ask you some questions. Can you do one thing for me? Do the roar. Come on, mate.
You're really getting on my goat.
Just do the roar. That's all I want.
Run.
Stop the car! Stop the car!
To continue where we left off before, the rainforest is home to some of the most strange creatures you'll ever feast your eyes on. This food web can help you learn about the feeding relations within an ecosystem such as the rainforest. In this community, you can see that there's quite a variety. The rainforest contains lots of plants, so it's perfect for herbivores, or in this case, the Mr. Saturn, the Smeef, and the Pseudo-Wudo.
These animals feed on leaves from trees and tall grass. The plants that the herbivores feed on are known as producers because they can produce their own food. These are an essential part of the ecosystem because primary consumers are reliant on the plants as their food. And then the secondary consumers, which are carnivores, eat the primary consumers to survive, and the process continues. And energy is passed on throughout the chain. A way of showing the energy transfer is through an energy pyramid, which is shown here.
As each tropic level is ascended to, energy from each plant animal is passed on. But not all of it is because the animal does use energy as well. About a 10% loss as the levels proceed. Therefore, the apex predator for the quaternary consumer must gather more food for more energy.
This is Stuart's apex predator, the elusive ogre, which thrives in these temperate climates. Since the sun is much hotter than Earth, the regions are much more warm for these fellows, but they have learned to adapt. Ogres are very smart despite their degenerate appearance. Ogres are very smart despite their degenerate appearance. They have learned to hunt, build, and protect in order to survive.
Stuarth's soil is notoriously thin and lacking in nutrient. The only reason anything can grow is due to dead animal and plant matter, detritus, forming a carbon and nitrogen-rich topsoil over the coarse earth below it. Similar to Earth, Stuarth has 4 distinct seasons. Summer on Stuarth is relatively mild, but the humidity makes most of the days much warmer. On the summer solstice, the sun rises at 4:45 a.m. and sets on 7 p.m., giving the longest day, 15 hours of sunlight, and weather depending, of course. The summer season sees the second highest amount of precipitation, with spring taking first place. Autumn is the season of the great harvest and the lowering of temperatures. The largest harvest takes place in the bogs of the boreal forest and the rainforest. The ogres harvest millions of onions for the winter months, which they will eat all of because they don't stop eating. Throughout the season, the temperature drops steadily from mild to cool. Winter isn't specifically cold, but snow is still present in the area away from the equator. Days are short and relatively windy, creating a wind chill and colder temperatures. On the shortest day of the year, the sun rises at 9 a.m. and sets at 3 p.m. Spring is the melting season. All the snow typically melts within a month of the equinox, and the temperature slowly rises from cold to mild. Flowers and plants begin to bloom, and many animals begin to come out and breed.
The water cycle is also a key component to all life in Stuarth, and it is the exact same water cycle on Earth. The process first starts whenever the water is transported to the atmosphere via evaporation, transpiration, and condensation. When the temperature decreases, condensation occurs, and clouds are formed whenever the water vapor latches on to salt and dust. Then the water vapor turns into water droplets and falls as rain.
The carbon cycle is also an important task, so that carbon is recycled. Without it, plant life would be destroyed altogether, leaving all life to be slowed to a painfully slow, depressing death. It occurs firstly when carbon from the air is used by the plants for photosynthesis, due to the fact that it is a key component in it. The next step is when the plants die, fossil fuels are formed. The fuels are later returned to the atmosphere whenever they are burned.
The final concept that we will be discussing today will be the nitrogen cycle. This starts off whenever atmospheric nitrogen is used by the plants, and then a process called nitrogen fixation occurs. This happens whenever nitrogen-fixing bacteria in the plants produce nitrates. They can be found in the nodules on the roots of the plants. The nodules also provide food and water to the plants. Denitrification then occurs when denitrifying bacteria converts nitrates to nitrites and then to nitrogen gas. The gas is then released back into the atmosphere, completing the cycle. In conclusion, Stuarth is a bodacious planet, home to some of the weirdest looking animals and some of the most baffling scenery. Although Stuarth is a small planet located in the middle of nowhere, it inhabits some of the most precious creatures who rely on the ecosystem and community to supply it with the necessary components for survival. Unfortunately for these creatures, they will have approximately 3 more months left until an 80-mile wide meteor traveling at 40,000 miles per hour will collide with Stuarth, bringing all of life to a quick, painful death.